Hello there and welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to be taking a look at this, the T420D from Aixun. This is a dual soldering station. Now, I've been using the Aixun T3A for over 6 months, and I'll be honest, it's been absolutely fantastic. Today though, we're going to take a look at its bigger brother, which is this dual soldering iron station. We'll have a look at what comes with it, we'll tear it down, walk you through some of its features and capabilities, and then at the end, I will share with you my thoughts having spent a little bit of time with it. Now, just to be 100% clear up front, Aixun have sent me this for free. They have not, though, paid me to make this video, and as always, my thoughts on it will entirely be my own. They have not seen this video before it's been published either. Anyway, let's get on with it. Let's take a closer look at what you actually get in the kit, and then move on to taking a look at how it all works. Okay, so just before we jump in and take a look at what you actually get, I'm just going to walk through some of the main basic features. This is a professional grade dual soldering station that has an output of up to 200 watts. It is fully temperature controlled, fully microprocessor controlled, and it has a whole host of features around that, such as dormancy, sleep mode, and we'll take a look at that a little bit more later on in the video. It offers remote firmware upgrade, rapid heating, and it also has the ability to use multiple different handles as well. Now, it comes in several different kits. The one I've got here features a 245 as well as a 210 handle, and this kit costs around £300 or $300 US, giving you a huge amount of options for your money when looking at this compared to other soldering stations on the market. Okay, so to walk you through what you get in the kit. Now, the main part is obviously this, the T420D soldering station. This is the main unit, and the interesting thing about this is that it doesn't actually use a traditional DC power supply. It uses a large toroidal transformer for powering the soldering irons. As a result of that, this unit is not only quite large, it's quite heavy as well, with the whole kit coming in at over 4 kilos and the bulk of that weight being in this unit here. You can see on the front, we have our LCD screen, we have our channel options, as well as our control functions, and then we'll take a look at that a little bit more later on. On the back, you can then see that we have our power supply input and switch, we have a grounding port, as well as our 2 I/O ports for the connections for the irons. With this kit, you then also get 2 stands. We have one for the left side and one for the right side, and the way this setup works is that our soldering handles actually connect to the stands via the port on the back here, and then our stands plug into the main base. The nice thing about this setup is that there are slots on each side for you to be able to just place your units on, or you can actually put these separate on a different part of the bench on the side if you wanted to as well. Now, included with the kit that I've got here, we have 2 handles. We have a T10 as well as a T245. You can also get this kit with a T115 as well, and it gives you a lot of options on what specific soldering setup you want to have, depending on what your specific use case is. We also have some tips for these handles, 3 on each side. We have a grounding wire, we have a cable holder, as well as our mains power cable too. Taking a closer look at the handles that they include with the kit. Now, we have the T245 at the top and T210 at the bottom. Now, both are of the same design, which is this plasticky area here on the handle, and then you've got this silicon wire that goes off to the main connector. Neither of these handles are rubber coated. They are hard plastic, but they do include these little foam covers that you can put onto the handles if you're finding temperature creep into the plastic. I've been using the T245 on my other T3A iron for the last 6 months, and I'll be honest, I use quite high temperatures a lot of the time, and I've not really felt the need to fit one of these on at all, but it is there available if you want it. Now, the nice thing about the handles that Aixun provide is that they do have this nice flexible cable as standard. It's not a plastic cable, it feels a silicone cable, and that means it's not offering any drag, it's not really causing any pull on the iron, or you're not having to sort of mess with the cable to get it to go where you want it to. Overall, it's really nice and flexible, and it's also a good length as well. I don't know how long that is, but I'll be honest, I've just stretched it along my table. You can't see this, but it is very, very long. If I just span it out, I'm going to just estimate it go 1, 2, 3. I'd say it's over 4 foot in length on each of the irons, and they both have the same setup, with the T210 just being a little bit of a thinner handle overall compared to the T245. As I mentioned, they also include 3 tips for each handle. We have 2 conical tips, we have a straight and a bent, and then we have a chisel tip. Now, these are all compatible with the traditional sizing, either 210 or 245. I've been using the chisel tip on the T245 on the T3A for about 6 months, and it's still going strong. I've had no problems with it whatsoever. So there's a nice amount of tips here to get you going, but you can buy other tips directly from them if you want, or you can use tips from other manufacturers as well. Now, also included with this kit is this sprung lever that attaches on each side to the stand. And what this does is allow you to clip the cable in at the top to keep it out of the way, but you can also hang the iron from this as well, rather than have it sitting in the base. These bases are wired to the station, which means when you do put the iron into it, it will go into standby or dormancy, depending on what setting you have. And we'll take a closer look at all of that as we move through setting the unit up. Now, just looking at some of the features of the actual stands for the irons. As I've said, these are wired to the base, which means when you put the irons in them, they will go into standby or dormancy, depending on what the setting is. They have adjustable height positions. You have the tip cleaning area down here at the bottom on each. We have an area at the back for storing spare tips. And then you've got this, which allows us to quickly swap the tip without actually touching it while it's hot. So for instance, we can take our iron, we can put our tip in and pull, and that will then allow us to withdraw it from the handle. And then if we had a second tip in place, we could simply pick that up, put that on. We'll pick up the same one like that, place it into the hole, give it a push. We've swapped the tip without having to touch it with pliers or anything like that. And then we're ready to go, making hot swapping on the go really, really easy. The next thing we're going to do is walk you through the features and settings. So we're going to power the unit on and wait for it to boot. It only takes a few seconds, and then you can see it kick in with the display showing the value for each iron on each side. Now, when you first get the unit, it may come with the language set to Chinese. To change this, you'll need to go into the menu. You go across again. So go into the menu, click across, click on that first top option, change to EN, and then you can see that the lane language switches over to English, and we can then see the display is showing everything correctly. Jumping in a little bit closer, we can now see the display a bit easier. Taking a look from the top down, we have the manufacturer's name, the power supply, the firmware version, and the room temperature along the top. Below this, we then have the handle identification. It's already picked up that we have a T245 on the left and a T210 on the right. Below this, we have our dormancy temperature setting, which you can see is 90 on both sides, and that is then being displayed on the front because our handles are in the stands. Then at the bottom, you can see the power usage in percentage on each side, and then the preset temperatures that are available on each side as well. To change the settings on each handle, you can simply select left and right, and this little red box appears around the handle you wish to change. And then if you want to adjust what you want the preset temperature to be, you can simply adjust it up and down like that. Just note, there are times where you do see the red square appear, but sometimes it seems to disappear as well. So it does make finding out which channel you're actually on a little bit difficult at times. We then have an option to show us a graph. So for instance, if I go into the main menu, click left, you then have this graph representation output from the irons. So for instance, if I now lift up the T245, you can see the graph is showing the power usage as well as the temperature on the display as well. And then if I drop that back in, you can see that it's dropping down back to off state. Now, to enter the settings on this unit, we simply press the main button here, and then we have the main menu options available. We have that graph, which we just showed on the left. We have the temperature settings at the top, the system settings on the right, and then the dormancy settings at the bottom. If we go down, we can set the dormancy temperature, whether we want it to be 90 degrees or any other temperature, or off. We have the option for the dormancy delay, whether you want it to delay before actually entering dormancy when you place the handle into the stand. We have what you want the display to do whilst in dormancy, and then you've got the sleep time option as well, which is available in this unit. This is a fantastic feature that I use on my T3A all of the time. I actually have this set to about 20 minutes, so if there's a period of time where the iron isn't used, the whole unit will actually go into standby, just offering a bit of additional protection should you forget to switch it off. If we then go into the temperature settings here, we can set the units, we can set the level, so what we want each of the channel buttons along the bottom to do, and then you've got the option for temperature compensation to actually adjust what the output is on the iron compared to what is actually being shown on the display. Finally, you then have the system options, and if we go into this, here we have our language settings, our sound settings, so we can actually turn that beep on and off rather than it do it. We've got the option to restore, we've got the running time, which tells us the boot time as well as the working time of the unit, and then we've got the system info, which shows us the version, the service information, which is a really nice feature to have, and where to get hold of support if you need it, as well as the manufacturing date of the product. Overall, the display shows everything nice and clearly. It's all available there for you to see. The only thing you really need to remember is just to make sure you're selecting the right handle when changing the settings on the unit. Now, one of the big features on this station is what they call their AC pure isolation. What that is a toroidal transformer rather than a switch mode power supply. In this unit, the AC comes in, goes into the transformer, and then that AC is used to power the irons. There is no switch mode supply, there is no conversion from AC to DC to AC, and all of the circuitry and complexity around that. They are simply taking the AC from this unit and using that and chopping that up and slicing that to control the temperature on the iron, rather than relying on that DC conversion back to AC. As a result of that, you basically have total isolation in the transformer, you have the winding on the mains AC side, and then you have the windings on the output, meaning the output of this will always be isolated from the mains input. The next thing we're going to do is just check the continuity though on the earth points on this unit, and check that the tips on the iron are actually earthed as well. Okay, so we're going to check the continuity. Now, the first thing we'll do is check it from the earth pin on the back to the earthing point at the bottom. The reason I want to check that is the casing on this is plastic. It's not metal, so there isn't natural conductivity between the two. So I'm just going to go onto the earth point and onto the earth pin, and you can see there, brilliant, we're getting 0.11 ohm, which tells us we have good continuity. I'm going to stay onto the earth pin, and I'm then just going to check the stand. So I'm going to check this little metal rod here, and we'll see what we're getting there. Let me just pop it back on. You can see we are getting it is, depending on how I push on it, we're getting 1 ohm, 0.8 to 1 ohm on that one. And we'll check on this one over here. There we go, 0.4, 0.6 ohm as well. We'll then check the earth pin to each of the ends of the irons. So to do this, I'm just going to place the irons down on the side there, so they're not actually touching the stands. And again, we're going to go to the tip of each iron. There we go, we've got a good earth on that, 0.34 ohms. That's fine. And then I'm just going to swap, come over to this one here. Press down on him, and again 0.5 ohms, 0.4, all looking good. So we can clearly see that the iron is earthed to its pad properly, and all of the tips are earthed properly as well, meaning that we're not going to get any problems with different voltages on either side depending on the circuits we're working on. Not that we would ever be soldering on live circuits, however there is the potential for there to be an increase in potential if there was a difference between the ends. The next thing we're going to do is just do a quick tear down of this, just to have a look at what the build quality of the unit is like. Before we do that though, I just want to talk about some things on the outside. As you can see on the top here, you can see some finger marks, and that is because this housing is actually made of plastic. The external area of this device is entirely plastic. There is no metal anyway. You've got this black plastic top, you've got the grey plastic here, and then the plastic base. At no point on this unit is there any metal on the the outside at all. All we have is our USB-C port at the top for updating the firmware, our power connector, our connectors, and even the grounding pin is actually in plastic as well. So to take this apart, I believe it comes off from the bottom. What I'll do is actually undo this, we'll pop it off, and then we'll take a closer look. Just as I'm tearing this down, I just wanted to show you the earth bonding on the back of this. As I said, the casing on this unit is plastic, it isn't metal, so they're having to use separate earth bonds. And it's nice to see a nice large nut and a proper earth wire down there as well. I don't see this being any problems at all. Looks absolutely solid. So, getting the lid off, if I flip it over, you can see we've got the main board on the top here. The way it actually comes apart is you take the bottom panel off, which allows you to get to screws that will take the top panel off. And actually, they're not really screws. They're these large Allen hex bolts. And then you can get the lid off, and then you can see we have the main control board on the top, and then that large toroidal transformer down in there. She is absolutely massive, far larger than I would have expected, actually. It's a big old thing. It really, really is. And that is what is adding all of the weight. Now, just to very basically explain what is going on here, we have our mains input, which will be going into our transformer here. So we're going in on the primary windings, and then we've got our secondary windings over here. What we look like we have is two pairs. So we've got a green, a yellow, a red, a green, a yellow, a red. And then there are two blacks going up onto the main PCB as well. Let me just have a look at how the layout is on this circuit. Okay, so what we've got is the ribbon cables as well going in. They've got these really thick ribbon cables going to down. Each of them goes down to the board for the irons. Quite interesting that they've chosen ribbon cables rather than actually using wires to go to the ports for the actual stands and irons, but that is what it is. Okay, so having looked at the circuit, what it looks like is we've got two identical setups. So on this board here, I'm going to try and rotate this just to very carefully do it without damaging any of these cables, just so you guys can see what's going on. So we've got a port here and a port here. So we've got our one side, side A and side B. So we've got one pair in, or not pair, but one secondary winding in, second secondary winding in. So one that side, one that side. There's three wires, which would imply there's more than one voltage, I'm guessing. I can't quite see on the transformer, but I'm betting that there's more than one voltage. And then you've got these black ones which come up to here, which again look like they go to the switching regulator, which means that's probably powering the board, if I'm a betting man. So what you've got is your winding, each secondary winding for the iron, and then you've got a third winding for actually powering the PCB. That looks like, to me, what the setup is. I haven't got the voltages listed here, but it is interesting to see what the setup is. I'll see if I can see them. Okay, so I've taken the bracket off that holds the transformer in place, and we can see it's got a rubber top, which is nice, helps with vibration isolation. And I can now see, if I tip it up, voltages written on the side. So if I just tilt that so you guys can see, sorry, the front comes off if I do that, but you can see it's written down there. And what we have is red is 0 volt, yellow is 8.5, and green is 23.5. So we have a secondary winding, both are the same voltage, and then there's another one here which is 15 volt. So looking at that, and let me just get that back in place inside, there it is. So as I was saying earlier, I think what we have is the black wires are winding for power. That'll just be a power winding, and then we've got our two secondary windings that are providing power for the iron outputs. We've got a relay on each side for switching. There's some FETs, by the look of it, down here that are going to do the chopping for the control for temperature, etc. Having looked inside overall, I have to say I think the build quality in this is actually really nice. All of the connections are either latched or they're glued. So for instance, these connections here all have little latches on them to hold them in place. They're not going to come off. And all of the ribbon cables are all glued down. You can see glue there, glue there. There's glue down there where the ribbons go down the back for the soldering iron outputs, or the outputs to the stands, the IOs. So yeah, everything looks very well made. I can see nothing at all that raises any concerns with me. There appears to be an ARM chipset there. I can see the ARM label. I can't quite see it. What I'll do is I'll put it up on the screen so you can see it a little bit easier as well if I can. So I think really from a build quality point of view, there's like zero complaints at all. What's just an interesting observation, just looking in this, having not seen a device with a transformer for such a long time, there's just no capacitors in this at all. I'm looking around just going, there's just, anyone who looks inside switch mode stuff, you're used to seeing caps all over the place. And, you know, the real big standout is the fact that there isn't capacitors. We've just got that nice big AC toroidal transformer, some circuitry, and then our I/O switches and control buttons on the front. But build quality wise, thumbs up from me. Just before we get into doing some tests on this new station, I just want to show you the warm-up times. Now, as you can see, it is incredibly quick. I'm not going to time it specifically, but as you can see, this is in real time, and the amount of time it takes to go from that standby up to whatever the preset temperature is literally 1 to 2 seconds. In my experience on these irons, before you've got the tip to where you want it to be, it is already up to temperature. Now, I've been doing a bunch of tests on this iron just to get to grips with how it performs, and overall, the real limiting factor in my experience is not the power it's capable of delivering, it's the size of the tip. I'm going to just let the rest of this little bit play through, which is showing you me just testing it on some PCB, some transistors, and I do a 2P test as well, just to see how it handles dumping heat into that. What we'll do when this is finished, I'll come back and I will share with you my thoughts. Okay, so it's time for me to share with you my thoughts on the Aixun T420D station. Before I do that though, I just want to be clear up front again that they did send me this station for free. However, they have not seen this content before it's been published. They have not paid me to make this video. And as always, my thoughts are entirely my own. Now, having spent a bit of time with this station, overall, I think they've done a very good job. They've taken what they did well on the T3A and made a more pro dual iron station. For the price, which is roughly £300, $300, you get in dual irons, up to 200 watts of output, you get in the 2 stands, and everything you need to have a more pro setup on the bench. Whether you're a single user who just wants 2 different sizes, or you're a user that needs 2 separate stations, this should have you covered. There's some nice features, including the fact that the irons actually go into the stands rather than the main base, which means you can place them more remote than you would be able to do with some other stations, allowing you to have, say, a dual operator setup, but you can also clip them on the side like I've got here, making it more compact overall. For me, there are 1 or 2 little downsides with this product, the biggest being the weight. It is extremely heavy. However, it really isn't designed to be portable, so that isn't really a downside. It's just something worth mentioning because it is a lot heavier than, say, you would get with the T3A. Overall, I think if you're looking for a more pro station on the bench, this is going to be well worth a look. And if it serves me just as good as the T3A have, I will be able to highly recommend this no matter what you intend to do with it. Now, obviously, I can't talk about longevity in this video because I've only had it for a very short period of time, but I haven't had any issues with my T3A, and I would not expect to have issues with this, and I'm comfortable saying that if you're looking for a station, you should consider this for sure. Now, that is it from me from this video. If you have found it interesting or if you have any questions, please do let me know in the comment section. I want to say a thank you to Aixun for sending this one over. There is a link to it in the description of this video, as well as a link to AliExpress as well, where you can order this. As I've said, it costs about £300, $300, depending on the handle choice you go with. If there is anything I can help with, please do put it in the comment section and I will try and answer it as soon as I possibly can. If you'd like to support the channel to allow us to keep making content, please do check out the link to my Patreon in the description. It is only through the support of my patrons am I able to keep the channel running and keep making content such as you've seen here today. Anyway, that's it from me on this one. Please stay safe. I will speak to you soon.